Hello, friends and Bible fans. This is Old Testament Tuesday. I just recently completed reading the book of Job, and wow, it was quite a journey for me. So many flashes of insight, and some of you know that I'm about to release a book about counseling and soul care. And I realized as I was halfway through Job, my goodness, I don't have a chapter in my book about suffering, directly about suffering and where is God in suffering and how do we assign meaning to the things that we suffer. The last time I spoke to you, I talked mainly about Job's friends who came a great distance to comfort him and to be with him in his tremendous grief, and the things that they did right. And I said that they did everything right until they started talking. And when they started talking, they revealed something that psychologists call the just world hypothesis. This idea that if we do everything right, that nothing bad will happen to us, and contrary, the inverse is true, that if people are suffering calamities and disasters and losses, they must have done something to deserve it. And this shows up in something we call blaming the victim. If a woman gets raped, there must be a reason. She went to the wrong side of town, or she was dressed provocatively, or she just did something very careless, reckless to put herself in that position. And we do that, I think, because we want to feel like we have some control over things like that. So as long as I don't do what she did, then I won't experience that terrible thing that she experienced. So in the book of Job, his friends, there are three that are in the beginning that make various arguments, and then one later in the book, Elihu, who makes slightly different arguments, but all of them really, bottom line, it can be summed up in this kind of just world hypothesis. They, in subtly different ways, argue to Job that what has befallen him, the loss of all of his children, all of his wealth, his health, he's covered from head to toe with painful, itchy sores, that surely God is just. And so if you are suffering this type of punishment and torment, there must be something. There must be something that you did. There must be a hidden sin or iniquity that accounts for why you have been stricken so severely. Well, we know from the prologue of the book that it was Satan that did those things. And in the book, which is the more perplexing and disturbing aspect of the book of Job, is that God allowed it. And that's, a subject for another day. I don't kind of want to go down that road right at the moment, but surely it was Satan who brought those afflictions upon him. And Job is vindicated in the end, because what is stated about Job in the beginning, that he was an upright and blameless man. He was the greatest in God's eyes. This was God's opinion of Job, was that he was upright and blameless, that he feared God and he shunned evil. So throughout his friends' arguments, Job continues to hold on to his integrity. What he says, I'm keeping my integrity. I'm not going to believe what you're saying to me, because I know that if I had the chance to go to court and have a hearing with God as my judge, and I presented my case, that God would vindicate me. he never loses his trust and his confidence in the sovereignty of God, even when he is in such severe torment. He says, shall we, only worship God when things are good, or do we worship and trust God in all times? So, at the end, God is displeased. Job has been displeased with his friends, calling them miserable comforters and saying that all they have is a bunch of windy words for him that provide him no comfort. But then when he finally has his audience with God, God asks him 100 rhetorical questions about, were you around when I was creating all these things? Did you counsel me? Do you understand how creation is ordered, and how calves are birthed, and why the stars are where they are, and all of these questions? And Job, he gets a revelation of the sovereignty of God, and he surrenders in repentance and in dust and ashes. He says, I had heard about you, I'd heard of you, but now I see. And so God sends Job's friends back to him to ask Job to pray for them, because they had not spoken the truth, whereas Job had spoken the truth. So I guess in conclusion, I am going to include a chapter about this in my book. And I want for those of us who minister to people who are suffering in any way, to remember to avoid that just world conclusion and be very slow to make interpretations about other people's suffering. Because you know that if you were the one that was in pain and suffering, you wouldn't want somebody to come to you and start explaining things. We have to let God appear. We have to let God speak when we're ministering to people, and not pull people toward our own conclusions about what their suffering means, but just humbly and gently join them as they wrestle with their questions and as they wait for God to answer and bring his comfort to them. Thanks for listening. See you next time.